Technology can be used to increase communication with parents and families without sacrificing boundaries. Let's talk about that.
You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarbett, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can use technology and in all the different ways, from simple to a little bit more complex, to communicate with families and the community around us, to not only advocate for our program, but also to help, people understand what we do and create those relationships so that, if for whatever reason there were to be a problem or a behavior issue, we already have a little bit of rapport, but also just to kind of figure out hey, if we have a performance, we make sure that everyone knows all the things. So let's talk a little bit about how we use simple, low effort digital tools to show people around us what is going on in our classroom, get out information that we might need to have, and also make our lives a little bit easier. Now, before we get too far deep, I want to be really clear that you should be checking with your district on what their acceptable use policies, and make sure you're following all of those. Every district is a little bit different, so make sure you're doing that. But some general tips is making sure that if you're posting student photos or student work, you're doing it in a way that follows regulations. If someone has a no photo, no video list, they're not going to be on there, or at least, blur out their face, or, whatever your district policy is. Some districts won't even let you do anything. They'll just like, nope, we're not going to have a public facing thing. And that's okay, because there's some private facing things as well. Think about ways that we can share what's going on in our classroom within the realms of those policies. I do not want you to get in trouble by violating these policies when all you were trying to do is advocate for your program and show what's going on in your classroom. So when in doubt, ask for help, get it clarified, and whenever possible, get it clarified in writing. Those little tips there. So I think there's a couple of different ways you can do this. And some of these are ones that I've actually done both of these. So when I first started teaching, I actually had a Facebook page for my classroom. This is a strategy that I took from my cooperating teacher, and it worked great for her. She was able to share pictures of what's going on in the classroom. People seemed to really enjoy it. For when I started student teaching, I got to say, I had a picture that said Mr. Tarbett's here, and it was like, yay, that's super exciting. But what I liked about that is it really created this just constant flow of, all right, I'm going to take a few pictures here, and then I'm going to post them a couple times a week. It wasn't, every single day we're posting all these different things, but it allowed me to show what was going on. If the fourth grade class got the recorders today, I could, send a picture that says that happened, and also give some more information about, hey, you're not getting, they're not coming, the recorders aren't coming home yet. Don't worry. We're going to make sure that they know a few songs and do have that communication. Now, I'll be honest, I shut down this Facebook page during COVID. Obviously a lot was going on in COVID, and being out in a rural school district, I didn't want any more eyes on what I was doing than I was already receiving at the time. Quite frankly, at that point, there was just a lot of anger in a lot of different ways. And there was just a lot of tension that I didn't want to create a target. So I shut down that Facebook group or that Facebook page because I didn't want, it was literally to the point where no matter what we did, if we had them 6 feet apart, we're getting yelled at for doing that. If we don't have them 6 feet apart, we're getting yelled at because we shouldn't. It was chaos. So I shut it down because it wasn't worth it. It wasn't going to help what I wanted. But what I ended up doing is at that time, my teachers were using Class Dojo. So I would use Class Dojo to essentially push this information out. So if we did a game in the game, I would send it out in the Class Dojo group. So again, what I like about that is it actually, I think, now and knowing how things have evolved, I like that a lot better because it's not public facing. It's not something that anybody can see. It's only those people that have joined as family members, as parents or guardians of those people can see it. That for me feels a lot better. And what I liked about that is it also it made it a little bit more communication based, because essentially it would send it out as a message. So I'd get parents that would message back and was like, oh, so cool. Or, hey, I have this question. And it created a little bit more of a feedback loop so that they felt like a little bit more open communicating to me because I was essentially initiating that communication. Again, same thing with this. I wanted to make sure that I was following all of the rules. So, if there were students that were on the no photo list, they might be in there, but I might edit them out, or I might be strategic in where I'm placing myself on the camera so that they're not actually in the screen, or so, maybe it's just, shoulders down or whatever. That way that we're following all the rules. We're still doing it, but we're showing what's going on in our classroom. And when I was doing this, and even when I was doing this on Facebook, I wouldn't just say we played a game, but why? Why are we playing the game? We were practicing Ta and TT. We were working on these standards. We were working on these skills. We're practicing for this performance. Don't just show the fun, because I know there's a lot of fun. Show the why behind the fun. And that's where that advocacy part's coming. Another thing that I loved using, again, Class Dojo is what we used the majority of when I was teaching. We eventually moved into a more district-wide thing. I think it was called, what was it called? Talking Points. I don't know. Basically an app functioned the same way. But what I loved about that is it allowed me to have one-stop shop to send communication out. So if we have a performance coming out, I can send all of my save the dates there. I can, send hey, it's happening in a week. Hey, it's happening tomorrow. Hey, it's happening today. But also sending out things in a physical format, because I think that's really important. Regardless of how great your digital footprint is, always send things out in multiple ways, because let's be honest, nobody's ever going to read all of them. And you're still going to get people that have said, why didn't you tell me we had a concert? And you're like, well, I did. These 6 different things that you replied to. Those are concerts. So cover your bases in other ways, but also think that some parents, it just might not be for them. They might just, it's one more app. It's one more thing to check. They're not going to do it. So whenever possible, 1, send it in multiple ways. 2, kind of piggyback on what the rest of your teachers are doing. And 3, if at all possible, if you have any sort of like district-wide thing, use that instead, because that's going to make it a lot simpler. I want to briefly talk about managing that on-call expectation. Whether it was Class Dojo or Talking Points or Blooms or whatever we ended up using, I never actually sent a message outside of my contract time. That was a boundary that I set. I might have sent it, but I scheduled it to send the next morning during contract time. And I also I don't put it on my phone. I highly recommend you not put it on your phone, because I don't want to deal with it when I'm not working. When I'm at school, it would send me an email, so I knew when to go check it. So I would set a boundary that works for you. Depending on your situation, you might need it on your phone. If you're doing an honors choir or a choir and you're moving around, or you're going to the nursing home or whatever, you might need that on your phone. But for me, that was a boundary I set, because I didn't want to be on call 24/7. I didn't want a parent to feel like we needed to have this conversation at 9 p.m. If they sent me a message at 9 p.m., that's awesome. That's great. That might be when they had time. Maybe they just did bedtime and they have a moment. Great. I'm going to send a response during my contract hours, because that was a boundary that I set to make sure that I could juggle all the other things that were going on in my life. So whatever that boundary looks like to you, whether you're using a Facebook page, whether you're using a Class Dojo, whatever, if you're using technology in a way to connect with the community around you, set a boundary, because otherwise it will absorb your life if you're not careful. Beyond that, don't feel bad about using like quote unquote old school communication. Like a monthly newsletter about what's happening in the music classroom, I think is great, especially if you're able to send it out digitally and in print. That can be great, where you can send out some QR codes. Maybe if you have some videos throughout the week of people getting ready for the performance, you can have those QR codes in there, or links in the digital version. Again, showing what's going on, telling them why it's going on, sharing out important information such as concert schedules or this, that, and the other thing, but using that as another opportunity to show that we're not just having fun in the music room, or we're not just a planning period. Like, there's actual cool stuff going on here that's helping your students grow with people. And here's why that's important. Show them. Sometimes people really need it spoon-fed to them, and not because they're being annoying, or not because they think you're awful, or not because they don't believe in music education, is they quite literally do not understand what is going on in our classroom. So it's our job to show them. And what I love about this is whenever we do this type of communication to our community, our families, our parents, our grownups, our administrators and the other teachers in the building also likely see it. Because let's be honest, when was the last time you had a second grade teacher in your classroom while you were teaching? Probably not often, because they're not there. They're doing other things. They're at an IEP meeting. That's their planning period. So they might not know what goes on either. So that's the opportunity for us to show and to educate the cool stuff that's going on in our classroom and why we So while this episode is kind of about technology, it's really not. It's really about how we can use things to communicate with the people in our community. How can we show them what's going on in our classroom? How can we share the information that we need to share in a way that's equitable? So not just sharing it out one way and saying, well, you didn't get the mass text. Sorry, that's unfortunate. No, send it out lots of different ways just in case, so that we can make sure we're covering all our bases. We're making sure that we're doing it in an equitable and accessible way. But also show the fun and show the reasoning behind the fun. Because that's my favorite ways that we use technology, is to create a window into our classroom. I think it would be great to have parents be able to peek into our classroom, not actually, figuratively, and see what's going on in our classroom. Because again, it's likely been a while since they were in music class. And depending on their teacher, it might not have been a great experience. So thinking about how we can change the perspective, offer information, and help use technology, use these different tools, even use an old school printed out newsletter to offer a window into what is going on in our classroom. That's where we're going to start seeing some of these attitudes change about music, by having people understand what we do and the fact that it isn't easy, it isn't fluff, it is really freaking cool. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of That Music Podcast. If you liked it, please leave us a review wherever you are watching or listening. Be sure to hit subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit that bell icon so that you don't miss any new episodes that we release every Wednesday here on the podcast. With that being said, we appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of the students that you teach.